Talking about Vaca Muerta and how to add value to what is this world's second largest shale gas deposit. First, I'll give you a little bit of background on the speakers. Uh, I'm from Polyolefins Consulting, and another speaker is from Unisouth. Uh, I'm going to be doing this version in English, and he's going to be doing it in Spanish. We are part of an alliance of consultants, so it's individual consultants and consulting companies, mainly throughout the American company, but with representation in other places too. So what we concentrate is on petrochemicals, and of course, not everybody knows everything about everything. So we have various areas of specialization, and also we are located throughout the Americas, and so we have a local presence. There is this network of consultants is in several cities, but it's also interesting that we specialize on many things like project definition and planning. Then we go through the engineering of a petrochemical complex, let's say, or maybe just the polyethylene or polypropylene plant. But also we have expertise in operations, logistics, and eventually also experience helping the processors that eventually process plastics and other materials into final products. But in this outline, you can see what we plan on talking in the next few minutes. We're going to be talking about Vaca Muerta, what it is and its importance, also how to add value to raw materials through petrochemicals. And also we are going to be talking a bit about polyolefins that are one of the products that can add value. And then we're going to be talking about the specific opportunities that Vaca Muerta brings to us. The main strength of Vaca Muerta is that it provides a huge supply of low-cost and abundant natural gas. It also provides oil, but in our case, natural gas is more important. Vaca Muerta is the world's second largest shale gas deposit. So as far as supply from materials, that's assured. If we look at the country as a whole, in Argentina, in the past, the situation for large investments has been a little bit off and on, and sometimes investors are hesitant to commit to the region or to the country. We are going to see what the current administration is doing to solve that problem, and I believe that is going to be a positive outcome. First, let's look at natural gas production. Here we see that not exploration, but really extraction of natural gas and oil started around 2010. And it took a while to get going. And through time, extraction costs were diminished. And now we are in the right-hand side of the curve where things are happening very quickly. You can see that over the last 3 years or so, there is an up and down that happens to coincide with the summer season and the winter season. During winter, there is a higher demand for natural gas, and then it drops during the summer. And part of the idea of doing something else other than just using natural gas for energy is to do something that will reduce the seasonal variations. Looking a little bit at the country, there has been a new administration over the last year, slightly over a year, and it has brought some much needed stability to the country. Inflation has decreased very, very substantially, and we can see that the recession has also ended. Not everything is perfect, but we are moving in the direction of goodness. And one of the things that has happened is the government has implemented RIGI, that is an incentive scheme for large investments. And that means investments over $200 million. And if they are over $1 billion, there is an even better, better incentives. So it lowers income tax on dividends, offers the possibility of taking free availability of the earnings from exports. So the idea of this legislation is that it will generate and maintain predictability and stability. So it will encourage investments, and that is working. So there have been several projects that are underway, and many of those have been in the books for quite a while, but they just needed some stability in order to get going. And pretty much all of them at the time, and those are the easiest ones and more obvious ones, are transporting oil and natural gas to distribute throughout the country, later through the region, and eventually exporting to the rest of the world. So all of these investments are investments that are being implemented now. So construction has started and is well underway. There are additional investments that are being considered, and that includes additional infrastructure to send natural gas to Brazil and Chile, and investments within the country also. And those investments usually look at the regional markets. So we have natural gas, that's nice, but essentially we're taking this raw material and burning it. And there is also another problem, is that there is a very large amount of natural gas that will be available, but we need to increase the domestic demand and the regional demand to justify the transportation and the extraction. And also, what else can we do with natural gas other than just burning it? Can we increase revenue? And there are several things that can be done. So if we look at natural gas and its components, we can see that 83% or so, and here I'm talking about the Vaca Muerta, specifically natural gas. Of course, natural gas is a natural product, so its composition varies from area to area and even within Vaca Muerta itself. But on the average, these numbers are realistic. So about 83% is methane, a little over 10% is ethane, and for a little bit over 4% is propane. And then there are a few other elements. And here we can focus particularly into ethane and propane. They are very valuable materials that right now are just sold with the natural gas. So essentially they are being given away. Because from ethane, we can produce ethylene. That is the key component of the petrochemical industry. And from ethylene, we can produce many, many other products, and we'll talk more about that. From the propane, we can also produce propylene and, in turn, many byproducts. And then we can use hydrogen and butadiene that are also available. So here we are going to look at the derivatives from ethane. And this is not a complete chart. there are a few other things that can be done, and you can see that there are many possibilities. But the main one is polyethylene that can be produced directly from ethylene, sometimes adding vinyl acetate, and other times in conjunction with alpha olefins like hexene, octene, butene. Polyethylene is the largest or the most popular plastic that is being used. So this is a very important material. And it can be used in many applications, as you can see towards the right-hand side, in film, bags, containers, tanks, pipes, bottles, and many, many more. So the question is, how can we add value to it? So let's look at the ethane value chain. On the left, you have the extraction step. And that, of course, if you sell that material, it brings some value. But if you keep on processing it, you are going to have some additional value. On the right-hand side, you can see that it could be exported, and then you can decide where to send it depending on where you get the best value for it. Or you can produce petrochemicals, and that's when you really produce value, and not just in what you're paid for it. You really create good things for the region as a whole. If we look at polyethylene, this is we're now narrowing it now in that specific product. We have extraction of natural gas or oil. Then we produce olefins, and ethylene is an olefin. Then we polymerize it and produce polyethylene, and that is sold to converters that in turn will produce things like bags or pipes or bottles or what have you. And then eventually they'll go to the end customer. That could be you and I or industrial uses. So in each one of those steps, you are adding value. Here we're going to look at the value chain for polyethylene. First, comparing the value chain starting from oil with the value chain starting with natural gas. And we're going to see the difference between the two of them and also how much value we add. So if we look at oil, and here we have prices of each one of those materials, and what it gets a little bit confusing is that oil is usually sold on a basis of dollars per barrel, but polyethylene is sold by dollars per ton. So it's you kind of have to translate all that into a common language. So if we look at typical prices, and of course those prices change with the market up and down, but the relative values maintain themselves. So if we start with about $600 per ton for oil, and that's usually not the way it's mentioned, it's more like $70 or $80 per barrel. Then as we produce an intermediate that is naphtha, we really don't change the value very much. Then we produce ethylene, and we have been kind of maintained the value a little bit. But then when we produce polyethylene, now we increase its value by 2 to 2.5 times. And then if we make a final product with it, depending on what product is made, it can be something in the order of 5 to 6 times the original value. And that's nice. But if we start with natural gas, which is what we have in Vaca Muerta, that final value is about 21 or 22 times the original value of the natural gas. So that's a big increase of value. So now you're not selling raw materials, you're selling a final product. So this brings us a little bit into how these products compete in the world. So let's look at the ethylene production cost curve. Uh, on the vertical axis, we have prices, dollars per ton. On the horizontal one, we have thousands of tons per year. And all the way from left to right, that would be the production, the annual production. And of course, that annual production keeps increasing. So this is a snapshot in a certain year. So the numbers are just relatively true, but they vary. And then we see on the left, under Middle East ethane, that's where you have a certain amount of capacity, in this case, 25,000 tons, 25 million tons, sorry, and a dollar per ton value of $180 per ton. Then in the next step, we look at North American ethane, which would be US and Canada, and also Argentina, both Vaca Muerta and conventional deposits. And that's a little bit more expensive, but still very well under the more expensive producers. If we go all the way to the right, we are looking at Western Europe, and particularly China, methanol to olefins or coal to olefins. And you may wonder, how can they survive, those very high cost producers? And the answer is, well, strategically, it makes sense for the country to produce it, but also they do get a little bit of revenue. But the more interesting thing is that they set the price. They set the price for the final products. So while they are barely making it, the low-cost producers, like the ones in the Middle East and North America and a few others, they are doing very well. So sometimes prices go up and down, both of the raw materials or final products, but the relative advantages are always there. So let's look a little bit at polyolefins, and this is really something that is for petrochemical projects in general. So you need to have a raw material, you need to have a market that can be a local or domestic or even a regional or even an export market, but you have to define it. If you have those two things, usually you can get financing, technology, you can have it in-house or you can license it, and you can get good project management to put the whole thing together. The one key component is raw material. If you don't have raw material or access to raw material, you just don't have a project. Everything else, you can find your way around it, but raw material is always key. So do we have enough raw material for a complex in Argentina, depending on Vaca Muerta? Yes. It is projected that in the very near future, we could have about 35 million cubic meters per day of natural gas, and by 2030, between 140 to 230 million cubic meters per day of natural gas. Now, the Vaca Muerta average ethane content is roughly 10%. And well productivity competes very well with the U.S. shale, and it's getting better as we go along. And we need about 20,000 cubic meters per day of ethane to produce ethylene for 2 million tons, for a 2 million ton per year cracker and polyethylene plants. So clearly there will be enough ethane for a world-scale complex. So just as a reference and looking a little bit at past world-class projects, and the the main reason I picked this ones is because it was enough public information that you can get some idea of what these projects are looking like. Let's look at Braskem Idesa in the Veracruz state in Mexico. Is slightly over 1 million ton per year cracker and polyethylene plants. And the EBITDA that they have in 2017 was 623 million. Unfortunately, over the last few years, they had been short of ethane that's being sold, but that's the sort of earnings that you can get. Now, if we look at the bottom one, that is Dow Canada, and that's a project under construction. That's a much larger project. Is 2 million tons per year cracker and polyethylene, and the EBITDA estimate is around $1 billion per year. So if we look at all these estimates and a little bit on past history, we can say that the $2 million cracker can produce an EBITDA of between 1 and 1.2 billion, sometimes more, sometimes less. What does a project like this look like? Here we have a snapshot of the Braskem Idesa project. On the very left, we have utilities. In the middle area, we have a cracker and the polymerization units. And then on the right, we have the logistics section with railroad cars being loaded continuously to get material out. This required roughly 17,000 construction jobs during construction, and that's direct and indirect jobs, and 3,000 jobs during operation, again, direct and indirect jobs. So it not only is a big investment, but it generates good quality jobs. So we'll look a little bit more at Braskem Idesa, and the main reason I talk about this project is because there is quite a bit of public information, so it's interesting to follow it. The project started up in 2016, so clearly that was just the beginning. So, but by 2017, the following year, it pretty much reached nameplate capacity, and it generated an EBITDA of slightly over $600 million. After that is when ethane stopped being available, and it kept going down. And then later, Braskem Idesa made arrangements to import ethane to supplement the ethane that was not being provided by Pemex. So they had years in which obviously the EBITDA went down, but then there were years that were fairly good. If we look at 2021, even though they couldn't produce at nameplate, financially they did work very well. So the expectation is that by 2025, 2026, when the new import facilities will be operating, that will get much, much better. Sorry. So if we look at the benefits from a world scale complex, and a world scale complex for this is about 2 million tons. That is pretty huge. It has direct employment, some temporary during construction. The other one is during continuous operation. These are well-paid jobs that include professionals and technicians and specialized people. But also it will create industrial infrastructure, because it will require technical schools, railroads, roads, transportation, services to the plant. And also all those people have to be comfortable, so it will generate civil infrastructure, housing, schools, hospitals, hotels, stores, and so on. So all this makes the regional economy more resistant to the boom and bust that may take place if you just look at natural gas and oil. So it's a steady producer. And it also provides a year-round demand baseline for the Vaca Muerta natural gas production. So that's very, very good. So let's look at what polyethylene is. Well, you can and the end processors produce many articles. It could be bags, some bags that you use to store fruit and vegetables in the supermarket, some industrial applications, bottles, pails, wire and cable, pipe and tubing, and a few more applications. Many of them are very visible, like many bags, and others are sort of hidden, like piping and construction applications. If we look at capacity additions during almost a decade of 2022 to the end of the decade in 2030, we can see that in South America, nothing is going on. Now we know that there is some debottlenecking in Brazil and in Mexico, but no new capacity. The capacity has been increasing in North America and in China and in the Middle East. So the field is open. If we look at the trade flow, of course, the large producers are exporting in the areas where there is a shortage of material. So clearly there is material coming into South America and also going into from the Middle East into Asia Pacific. If we look just out of curiosity, what happens with polypropylene, we see that the amounts that are flowing are less, but it's still the same thing. So let's look at what is the installed capacity for polyethylene and polypropylene. On the left, we have polyethylene, and on the right, we have polypropylene. It indicates who the producers are, and we can see that some countries don't have any production at all. Others have some production, but very small, and others are relatively large producers. Braskem is one of the large producers. Dow is relatively small. And when it first started, of course, it was large, but now with time, that's not the very, very important amount of capacity. Now, if we look a little bit at the situation in Argentina, is that if you look at the table on the lowest row, there is almost no capacity excess, and actually there is a little bit of shortage. In practice, of course, there is some material that is being exported mainly into Brazil, and material that is being imported again from Brazil and also the United States. But as we see the economy in Argentina getting better, that shortage will very, very quickly become very substantial. So if somebody's looking at potential investment and new capacities, many of the large producers are constantly looking at the world and trying to see where it would be appropriate to build new capacity. So here I'm doing a very quick comparison between Argentina, particularly in the Neuquén area, and also Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, Venezuela, and the U.S. I take several factors, the most important ones, but if you do this analysis, there are many other factors that you have to take into account. And also, not all factors carry the same weight. Some are more important than others. But at least in this initial step, while the US and also Canada are probably the best alternatives within the American continent. Argentina is definitely a very good option, and the other possibilities are not so good. So we have reviewed everything, and we can see that there are several opportunities. So there is very good opportunity to build world scale capacity in Argentina, both for polyethylene and polypropylene, because there is uh, low cost and abundant ethane and propane. As far as we know now, no one is having public plans or specific activities. Uh, we believe that there are several that are looking. Uh, the other neighboring countries, really, for one reason or the other, are not good alternatives at the time. So this is a good investment opportunity in both in Argentina and also to take advantage of the large uh, South America import market. What the next steps are is, well, look into a feasibility study, and we can certainly help you doing that and evaluate markets, competitors, technologies, and so forth. And the reason we can do that is because we have done that many times, and we are very familiar with the region and the technologies and all the activities related to this business. Uh, we One of the things we believe in is doing it faster and generating just the information that is needed, and then be able to move projects ahead. Because if you have a good project every month or every year that you uh, delay, you're essentially losing money. Thank you very much. A PDF of the presentation will be available, and you can always contact us, and we'll send you the PDH or answer any questions that you may have. Thank you very much.